Last fall, I was hearing a lot of buzz about this new horror movie, Speak No Evil. Being a well-known horror lover in my circle, I was getting glowing recommendations for the film, so I just had to see it for myself. At the time, I was trying out a subscription to Shudder. I looked up Speak No Evil and wasn't surprised to see that it was already available. Without second thought, I pressed play. What followed was a heart-pounding clash of cultural manners and misunderstandings, culminating in a chilling Hanukkah-level finale that functions as a parable. I was delightfully floored. It was the best horror movie I had seen in a long time, and I was impressed that a tale so twisted and metaphor-laden was crushing it at the box office. I immediately wanted to review the film, but to my surprise, IMDb revealed that I had actually watched the 2022 Danish original, not the newly released American version. Now, keep in mind, it's not that I think the American remake is an objectively bad film. As far as remakes go, it's decent, but to me personally, after watching the original and seeing its themes, the nuance and unease that made it so special, bastardized and stripped away, I could not help but think, wow, people don't realize what they're missing. The Speak No Evil remake is effectively suspenseful, but it lost its soul. A story about the fatal consequences of people-pleasing politeness becomes, in the remake, an audience-friendly thrill ride with the happy ending. There may be nothing more emblematic of Hollywood's malaise than the remake. Sure, prequels and sequels can be just as bad, if not worse, but at least it can be justified by saying, we are telling a new story here, fleshing out a world that already exists. But a remake? Ugh. You're basically saying, well, this worked once, and it's been a little while, how about we do it again? Or, here's a movie that did really well in another country. Let's adapt it in English for dumb American audiences too lazy to read subtitles. Insert Hollywood's latest stars and call it a day. Acquire the rights, and you have easy money. There is nothing more insulting to a movie fanatic, especially if the movie they are remaking is already a bona fide classic, one of significant cultural importance and influence, a movie that belongs exactly when and where it was conceived, such as Dario Argento's 1977 horror masterpiece, Suspiria. It's the full package. An atmospheric and viscerally gory joyride. A simple but wonderfully spooky plot that ties itself up nicely. It's one of the most famous, most definitive examples of Italian horror. If there's any movie that does not need a remake, it's this one. Well, about that. While I'm sure there are many of you who will disagree with me, I walked out of the 2018 remake in shock. It was amazing. In fact, I thought it was better than the original. And now it's time to jump into the why. Is it simply a better movie? Is it more accessible to a modern audience? Or does it, as I'll begin to reveal, build a more immersive, more compelling world than the source material it borrows from? And just what is a remake anyway? Is sharing title and IP enough? There are so many kinds of remakes. How do we make sense of them all? What are they even for? Are remakes the cancer they're often made out to be? Or is the problem not with the idea of remaking, but with how they're usually conceived and produced? It's time to find out. In the world of remakes, Suspiria is sort of a black sheep. Why? Well, because the original did not make hardly a lick of money in the US.
The only thing more terrifying than the last 12 minutes of Suspiria are the first 92.
The original Suspiria was released in Italy in 1977. It did not receive an actual theatrical run in the US, but the rights were acquired by 20th Century Fox, who gave the film an extremely limited run under their subsidiary International Classics. And it did manage to gross $1.8 million, which was pretty decent, all things considered. Obviously, Suspiria would attain quite the cult following, but even then, it was extremely niche. The film did not even receive a physical release in the US until 2001. The film, like much of Argento's work, was legendary in Italy. In the US, though, it was almost completely unknown, except to the most avid of horror fans. Basically, what I'm saying is this: Suspiria is not a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, or a Nightmare on Elm Street. The IP was not well known by a general audience. Unlike 90% of remakes, this film was not remade for the sake of easy profits. So then, why was it it made? Well, simply because Italian filmmaker Luca Guadagnino loved the original. It was one of those films he would never forget seeing for the first time. I saw the original movie when I was almost 14, but I had seen the poster when I was 11. Those two experiences marked me in my imagery very, very strongly, and I started to nurture a sense of obsession for the realm of this film. After I saw it, I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I didn't have a VCR, so because I couldn't see it again, I started to think of it, and I started to draw things, and I started to have images in my mind coming from that film. And I started to draw posters for Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria. Fast forward to 2007, 10 years before his global success with Call Me By Your Name. Luca set out to make his lifelong dream a reality by purchasing the rights to remake Argento's classic. Initially, Luca did not intend to direct the film. No. Instead, David Gordon Green was set to direct, who, ironically, has just recently become the de facto reviver of legacy horror IP, with Halloween and The Exorcist. Green described his version of Suspiria as operatic, adding, "I love Argento's film, and we wrote a very faithful, extremely elegant opera. I don't mean musical opera, but it would be incredibly heightened music, and heightened and very operatic and elegant sets." Which, and not to dismiss Green here, rings all of my remake alarm bells. While it's impossible to say, this approach of remaining very faithful to the original while heightening the aspects that made the original so unique, that being its music, sets, and lighting, stinks of a shallow adaptation. A similar approach was taken to the Carrie remake, which isn't totally awful. I love Chloe Grace Moretz's performance, but overall it adds nothing to the original. When Green was unable to obtain financing for the film, he dropped out, and the project sat on the back burner for several years, until Luca decided that he wanted to direct it. How does someone so affected, so influenced by the original film go about remaking it? Are they so attached to the source material and original aesthetics that they set out to create a clone? Maybe a lesser director would, but not Luca. Rather than aiming to create a quote-unquote remake, he set his sights on recreating the way the original film made him feel. So, here's the truth. Suspiria isn't a remake. It isn't a sequel. It takes the lore and themes of the original, expands upon them, and eventually comes out to its own piece of standalone art. Yes, it's still Suspiria, and revolves around a female dance group with witches. But Luca, so deeply moved by the original, internalized its aspects, stirred them all together, and created his own interpretation, his own vision. This, in my mind, is the approach that should be taken for almost every single remake. But it takes passion, an understanding of the source, and a vision for the new. But as we all know, this almost is never the case, since remakes are not usually created for that reason. It's now time to talk about the film, its relation to the original, and what it does to set it apart. It is my belief that this film, despite being well received by horror fans, is still criminally underrated. It takes what I consider to be a classic and makes it even better. Just like the original, the film begins with pouring rain. Rain paints the atmosphere for the entirety of both films. It's almost always there in the background. Our first major divergence comes with the introduction of the character who drives the initial mystery, Patricia. In the original, she barely appears before becoming the film's opening kill, but in the remake, we are given an entire scene with her. Fans of the original might expect Chloe Grace Moretz to have her Drew Barrymore moment here, but that kind of exhibitionistic kill won't arrive for another 30 minutes. Instead, we are immediately sympathetic to her character, who appears to be having a psychotic break. Her nervous energy, paired with the rumble of thunder and distant bombs, is a wonderful way to establish a feeling of unrest. Which of these two approaches are better just comes down to personal preference. Argento's unrelenting style and brutality is present from the start and continues throughout. Luca's approach is that of a slow burn. Immediately, the visual departure from the original is striking. The gray, muted tones of the remake are a stark contrast to Suspiria's usual technicolor. Instead of bright, glossy painted primary color rooms with gold accents, we get concrete buildings buildings, boarded up windows, and flaking interior walls. When asked why he went about an opposite visual approach of the original, Luca would say, "I don't think we tried to make something opposite to that. I think Suspiria, by me, is extremely rich in colors, except that we went for a different take. I think everything that could have been said through that style has been said." Basically, what Luca is saying here is that he did not want to mimic or create a pastiche of the original style. It's a bold move, considering that the look of the original is such an integral aspect to its enduring success. But I love that he went in a different direction. A significant piece of the Suspiria remake, one that may not be apparent on first watch, is its allegorical purpose, that being a protest against fascism set against the backdrop of East and West post-war Germany. Set in 1977, screenwriter David Kajanik explained the story as a struggle between the past and the future over the souls of the present, in a way. And we knew a large part of this story was going to be about how fascism works exactly. And fascism works because a lot of people stand by and let it work, or are drawn to it because they're emotionally invited in somehow, and they don't have to commit crimes themselves. All they have to do is really just stand by in support of them. This theme resonates from the first scene. Patricia, in a panic, tells Dr. Klimpera,
"At the beginning they gave me things, perfect balance, perfect sleep, talking with our minds. But they took my hair, they took my urine, they took my eyes."
Textbook fascist manipulation. The allure of incentives and the promise of belonging exchanged for autonomy.
Oh, she wants to get inside of me. I can feel her. Oh, I thought I wanted it. I let it happen.
There is so much sadness in this delivery. She is reckoning with how complicit and truly convinced she was by the witches. Yes, she was deceived, but she continued to go along with it even when things started to escalate. Speaking to fascism as a whole by showing how easily someone can unknowingly allow themselves to be consumed by the very system they once embraced. Patricia is not only awakening to the corruption within the dance group, but Germany as a whole. As a member of the Red Army faction, an anti-fascist militant group targeting former Nazis in power, Patricia embodies a generation violently rejecting its parents' complacency. When the witches say,
Patricia wollte nicht und Blanc glaubt, dass das der Grund war. Wir wollten ihr unsere Macht geben, aber sie wollte nur Kaufhäuser in die Luft jagen.
it shows their self-contained priorities. They care nothing for the outside world, only for maintaining control within their walls. They are not Nazis, but fascists in their own right. This is another change that comes down to personal preference. Personally, I love the historical backdrop, and believe it adds depth and weight to what otherwise is a spooky tale of witches. But for others, a simple, scary, and atmospheric horror film may be exactly what they want. That's exactly what the original was.
Are you scared yet?
Boy, all this scary movie talk is making me want to curl up with a blanket and a pillow. Specifically, a Momani Threads pillow, which is the sponsor of today's video. Do you want a pillow that's more than just a pillow? Each Momani Threads design is bursting with fun and personality. They make most decorative pillows look bland in comparison. And not only that, these pillows are not mass-produced, they are not made in a factory. Momani Threads is a small business with a commitment to local sourcing and production. These pillows are a labor of love. If you would like to see more, you can find their website down in the description. Back to the video. After the intro comes our title sequence, and with it, one of my favorite songs in the film, Suspirium, by the one and only Tom York. It's a somber piano waltz with enigmatic lyrics that play over a rural family gathered around a dying matriarch. As a huge Tom York fan, I have to admit that his work on the film is a big reason why I love it so much. But I think even outside of that fandom, he provides a striking and unique soundtrack, one that in no way, shape, or form resembles the original composed by Goblin. Tom himself would say, "I watched the original film several times, and I loved it because it was of that time an incredibly intense soundtrack. Obviously, Goblin and Dario worked incredibly closely when they did it together, but it was of its time, and there was no way I could reference it in any way. There was no point, other than what I found interesting was they used repetition of motifs again and again and again. Part of your mind was saying, please, I don't want to hear this anymore. That was really great. There's a way of repeating in music that can hypnotize. I kept thinking to myself that it's a form of making spells. What Tom said there really captures the heart of what Goblin's soundtrack did for Suspiria. It drives much of the pacing and has a strong central sound that disperses into variations that seep into your mind and subliminally tell you exactly when to anticipate scenes of terror. Tom did a great job adapting that concept. He has his own repetitive musical cues, though much more subdued. His work on Folk, the music for the dance recital, is especially effective. We are then introduced to Dakota Johnson's character Susie, a girl who travels all the way from Ohio to audition for the West Berlin Helena Marcos Dance Company. This audition scene is so satisfying to me. Dance, minimal in Argento's original, is central in Luca's remake. I have an immense passion for dance, so it's the sort of thing I love. Even if you aren't particularly into dance for whatever reason, the movie makes you care. Every dance scene has a purpose. It's not only mesmerizing and beautiful, but also the driving force of the action. The Coven uses dance to spellcast and harness energy, so it's easy to understand why they want only the very best at their company. I just love that Luca took what was really only a setting in the original and transformed it into an integral piece of the plot.
A piece about rebirths, the inevitable pull that they exert, and our efforts to escape them.
Now let's talk about another aspect of this film I love. It is dripping in feminine sensuality.
4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3.
Now, unlike my other points, this was an element that Argento incorporated in his film, though not nearly to the same degree as the remake. I wasn't primarily interested in the theme of motherhood, but rather in women's lives. In fact, if you want to give a deeper reading of the film, it can be seen as a vaguely lesbian story, where lesbianism has a certain importance, or, more precisely, where the relationships between women are sometimes of a lesbian nature, and are characterized by power struggles. There aren't any male characters to speak of in the film. All there is are power relations between women. If that was something he was going for, I don't think it was ever achieved, since all the Academy students act like little girls, and we barely get to know the teachers enough to ever glean a hint of lesbianism. Luca's remake, on the other hand, is a potent exploration of raw female sexuality.
It felt like what I think it must feel like to
You mean to f a man?
No, I was thinking of an animal.
To list some examples, Madame Blanc has an air flirtation with all her students, but especially Susie, while some of the other matriarchs mock the policemen by toying with their flaccid members. I also loved this line after one of Susie's nightmares when she sleeps with Sarah.
I've only ever slept in bed with my sister.
We're sisters now.
Sexual repression also surfaces as a theme, specifically in Susie's backstory. I love how all these details contribute to the film's tension, making desire, shame, and power inseparable parts of the horror.
Something happened to you during it?
No.
Did you feel something there? Someone?
But this movie isn't all themes and metaphors. It successfully scares me on each rewatch. Some of you may be familiar with the dance kill scene, even if you haven't seen the film. It's incredible, and probably one of my favorite kill scenes in any horror film. Arguably, it's perfect. The editing, the body horror, the incorporation of dance, body contortion, and music, so vital to the film, all make a memorable kill scene. Speaking of memorable, those witch hooks are nightmarish. They're sleek and antique looking. It's hard to believe they were absent in the original. The sheer brutality of those scenes is unforgettable, with the way the witches paralyze their victims, but you can tell they still feel every grapple of the hook. And while we're on the topic of gruesome kill scenes in Suspiria, I want to take a moment to harken back to the original, with perhaps its most unforgettable moment, when Sarah falls into a pit of razor wire. It's not quick either. She writhes and struggles to get out, but the movement only gets her more tangled and lacerated. Undoubtedly, it's a human trap planted by the Coven to keep out intruders. Luca's version doesn't attempt to replicate that scene. I mean, how could you? It's perfect. But he does give his Sarah an equally terrifying trespasser trap. She wanders down a long, dark hallway, and the floor suddenly peels back beneath her, causing her to step into a gaping hole and break her leg. Mia Goth's screams of agony cut deep, and the film doesn't shy away from showing the protruding bone. The sequence is edited so that it's impossible to look away, intercutting her torture with a grandiose dance performance you don't want to miss. It is now time to get into the climax and conclusion of the film, which I believe are brilliant. The remake's ending is radically different from the originals. It's a twist ending of sorts, though it doesn't have that gotcha feel. But what it does accomplish is a total recontextualizing of everything we have been shown beforehand. The ultimate payoff to a slow burn. This scene is epic. Susie is revealed to be the true mother, Suspiriorum, aka Mother of Sighs, the very sigh of death itself. The recurring image of her mother's dying breaths reflects Susie's transformation. Her mother's death allows her own rebirth.
Death to any other mother.
Spiritually drawn to the Coven, she arrived to restore balance and reclaim her throne. Those loyal to Blanc are spared, while the followers of Marcos are ruthlessly killed for believing in her lies. In the end, Susie's arrival feels inevitable. She is the true mother the Coven had long invoked with rituals, but when she finally came, they were too blinded by their own corruption to recognize her. And I love how ambiguous all the motivations are. Did Susie know who she was all along and come to the Coven like an undercover boss? Or was she uncovering her own truth as the movie progressed along with us? That's up to you.
For whom were you anointed? Which of the three mothers?
Mother Suspiriorum.
I am she.
Visually, the finale is a feast. I'd be content if the film ended here. The Black Sabbath ritual looks like a dancer's rendition of the hellscape in the Garden of Earthly Delights. Everywhere you look, naked bodies are convulsing in counts of 3, as the Coven, cloaked in dresses made of hair, looks on. When Suspiriorum takes control, a crimson shadow is cast over the scene, as everything slips into a hazy, slow-motion effect. Tom York's Unmade swells, making the carnage feel divinely somber. The scene of Suspiriorum ripping open her chest to reveal a cavernous altar of Venus looks like a painting. It's gushing blood, yet her windswept hair an expression of ecstasy as she proclaims, evoke an unholy version of the Immaculate Heart of Virgin Mary. When her slaughter ends, Suspiriorum steps into the circle of dancers, silently commanding their movements. It's rhythmic, strangely beautiful, and reminds me of a blooming flower. You almost completely forget about poor Dr. Klemperer laying naked on the floor, witnessing it all. I'll take this finale over the cheesy explosions of the original any day. Overall, I really adore Susie's character transformation as an audience insert. Her journey begins with her arrival at the dance company, where we experience everything through her eyes as the central figure we follow. So, when she finally ascends into her true power, it feels deeply inspiring to me as a woman. This message may not come across to every viewer, especially since it was directed by a man. But to me, I feel a kinship to Luca's portrait of femininity as a force to be revered. Each woman and his vision is complex, capable of both cruelty and compassion. They make choices that aren't always agreeable, sometimes selfish, yet remain free, wild, and unstoppable. In the remake, Susie is reimagined as much stronger and more self-aware than in the original. Instead of just surviving the horror around her, she awakens to her true identity and realizes that the power she possesses comes from within. She's so unlike the typical final girl of horror films, who simply endure or escapes the violence, a role the original Susie fits perfectly. This Susie evolves from an innocent bystander into the very source and subject of the film's horror.
Death to any other mother.
When Susie reveals herself as Mother Superiorum, she seems like a more merciful ruler. But when she goes to the traumatized Dr. Klimpera to right her daughter's wrongs, it's clear she's more than what meets the eye. She reveals to him the fate of his long-lost wife, who met her end at a death camp, then erases his memory completely. Her line,
Wir brauchen Schuld und Scham, aber nicht deine.
sounds compassionate, but her ulterior motives become clear when you realize she just silenced the only witness who could expose the Coven's truth. Yes, he's free of grief, but forever robbed of identity and all the happy memories he shared with his wife. As Guadagnino told Vulture, you feel that something good has happened to a beloved character, but in truth, it's a monstrous act. Without memory, even the most painful of memories, we are nothing. We are not human. So the person who wipes off the memory is really a villain. Amid all the film's violence, this delicate act becomes the most haunting, because it's disguised as maternal nurturing.
Every memory will vanish. They will melt away in the sun.
Though the additional 14 minutes of the epilogue feel unnecessary, I can see why they included it. They wanted to tie all the metaphors full circle. I do enjoy watching the remaining witches try to clean up the bloody mess they made. Even after such destruction, the Coven endures. The dancers continue their practice as if the Black Sabbath never occurred, because for them, it didn't. The last scene is Klimpera's old cottage in the future. He and his wife's love initial graving still remain standing, but it's painted over and unnoticed by peaceful passers-by. Klimpera's painted-over heart in the final scene becomes a symbol of history's persistence. The past never truly dies, but lays dormant. Power may change hands, but without memory and accountability, history will always find a way to possess us again.
Why is everyone so ready to think the worst is over?
So, where does this all leave us? Well, in my opinion, we are left with a film that is close to a horror masterpiece. While the movie is already well regarded amongst horror fans, and there are many who love it as much as I do, as a whole, I think that it is criminally overlooked and underrated. As Luca continues to shine and build a filmography that stands among the best of this era, I hope that this film will continue to build a following just as the original Suspiria did. But who really knows? Dario Argento himself, initially content with the film receiving a remake, seemed to take issue with the fact that the film wasn't more of a point-by-point rehash. Either you do it exactly the same way, in which case it's not a remake, it's a copy, which is pointless. Or you change things and make another movie. In that case, why call it Suspiria? Which, he's kind of right, but to me, it's a bit of a weird thing to complain about. He would continue by saying, "It betrayed the spirit of the original film. There is no fear, there is no music. The film has not satisfied me so much." Which I just think is blatantly false. It's a much different film, there's no doubt about it, but to say it betrayed the original spirit of the film seems overly dismissive. Not to mention the fact that music, despite being less in your face than Goblin's soundtrack, quite literally plays a much larger role in the film due to the nature of dance. It's not unusual for an original creator to feel this way, even if the adaptation is a good one. Stephen King famously hated Kubrick's Shining, which honestly is sort of the inverse of the two Suspirias. King's Shining provides significantly more context, nuance, and backstory, while Kubrick's leans heavily into atmosphere, adrenaline, and icy simplicity. All of these have merits and will appeal to different people. But in my opinion, in a world where 95% of recycled IP ends up as garbage, the 2018 Suspiria is a sterling example of what a remake should be, which is not a remake, but a reimagining by an artist with a passion for the source material and a creative vision of their own. Thank you all for being here. If you like this video, give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel if you want more videos like this. And a big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. You guys support this channel and I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you guys aren't already, please consider checking out my Patreon. You get videos early, you can request reactions to movies, and it's just a really sweet community we have over there, so check it out. All right, until next time, Camcorder Cameron signing out.